We just saw that America got its second AAA downgrade ever in US history. This was from Fitch, the rating agency, which was my former competitor. I used to work at Moody's, which is now the only big rating agency that still has, the AAA rating. But Fitch blamed the debt ceiling brinkmanship in part, which didn't sit well with me because to me it seemed like they were trying to blame the GOP when it was the GOP was the ones that were trying to negotiate a more sustainable fiscal path. I do agree with what Fitch said, more big picture, though, that the U.S. needs to get our fiscal house in order. But to me, it seemed excessive to go after basically the people who were trying to have the debt ceiling be a mechanism to have this conversation. What do you think?
Well, I would say, first of all, I do think that irrespective of what you think of the deal, I thought that both the president and Speaker Kevin McCarthy behaved like adults and they got a deal done and they saved us. They brought us back from the cliff. So they both deserve credit for that. And, that was politics, at least for a split second, working. So that's good. As far as our debt, look, we've been talking about this for a long time. There's a certain point at which people are going to say, even the United States, you can't borrow anymore. And what really bothered me about the debt ceiling negotiations was not the terms of the deal, but they were negotiating over what was basically 1/6 of the budget, Carrie, right? Because you can't touch entitlements. And I've said on this show before, I think it was very irresponsible of the president to, even though he got a political win at the State of the Union, to bring up, oh, you're not going to touch Social Security and Medicare. We have to. And in 2034, there's going to be mandatory cuts in Social Security. So if we don't do it, it's the old AMCO ad, right? You can pay me now, or you can pay me a lot more later. So, and then defense is off the table, right? So you have 1/6 of the budget. So it's a joke. So the Republican policies or whatever ideas they had to reduce spending, again, it's such a small sliver of the budget. Until we address entitlements, we are not going to get our spending under control. And there's no indication that we're in anywhere close to doing that. So I think, frankly, we deserve the downgrade. I don't think much of the credit agencies because they slapped AAA ratings on all this junk that helped fuel the Great Recession in 2008. But in this case, I do agree. And we're over 32 trillion already. And as I said, it's not the amount, but I don't see us anywhere close to really getting a hold on the problem. What do you think?
I mean, I do think we do have a huge fiscal problem. We're totally in agreement on that. Like, we need to get our house in order. I agree with you on the entitlements. I think that the Republicans and the Democrats both are just being chicken about this. And I like Paul Ryan. I did some projects with him. He was one of the rare Republicans who was saying what needs to be done on this. And you're right, it's going to be automatic. So the Wall Street Journal had a great op-ed about this. And the writer called it the Biden-Trump Social Security cut, because even though neither candidate wants to say they're for it, it's going to happen if they don't do something more gradual. So I'm totally with you on there. I think, though, as far as like the ability to actually service the debt, that's not even close to being in question. And that's kind of the dispute that I have about that methodology. But again, I'm coming from Moody's, and that's a competitor to Fitch, so we can disagree on that.
Well, and again, we mentioned this on the show when we were talking about the debt ceiling before, is that every 1% increase in interest rates is a $300 billion increase in debt service on a $30 trillion debt. So I don't think we've come to grips with the fact that the rise in interest rates is going to saddle us with another $1 trillion a year at least in debt service for the next few years, just on what we already have. So there are a few senators. And by the way, one of the reasons Donald Trump was elected president was he was the first Republican who, unlike Paul Ryan, said, I'm not going to touch entitlements. Now, that may have been good politics, but again, it's bad fiscal policy. And he was responsible for $8 trillion, more than a quarter of the debt that we had, which is the most ever in any 4-year term. So, and then, of course, Biden's fueled the inflation. So I think the whole thing is a mess. And I think that this is just, to be honest, this should be a canary in the coal mine to us, because it's only going to get worse from here if we don't stay our house in order. And I applaud senators like Bill Cassidy and a few of them, people that have had the courage to tell the American people that, if we don't do something on our own, it's going to be done for us. And I think if you talk to a lot of 30-year-olds, they don't think they're going to be getting Social Security anyway. So I think because the low expectations are there, there's a chance to change the deal where instead of a defined benefit, it's a defined contribution. And that should be the same with all pensions as well.